Hey everyone, I hope that all of you are doing well, that you're okay. And today's topic is going to cover idolatry, being in control, letting go, things like that. Just to clarify something for everyone, these videos are not necessarily going to resonate with or be appropriate with all Christians because we're all on a different journey and we're all at we're kind of on the same journey, but we're at different points in our journeys. Some are very new and grappling with the basics. Some are kind of complacent and lukewarm and happy with, some things and happy to ignore other things. And some people are very deep in the word and they are happy to grapple the hard and rough topics, basically. I do understand that there are a lot of channels out there that deal with the basics and they are very helpful towards Christians who are new in their walk with Christ, or for other Christians who are dealing with some of the baseline things that we find in the Bible. I did find that it was difficult to get content relating to the deeper subjects or things that were easy for people to miss or things that have kind of been accepted as being thrown out due to our modern world and things like that. So if you are the kind of Christian who is past the basics and you're struggling to find content that is more straightforward, rooted in the word, and direct, basically, not afraid in calling out questionable things because, we're dealing with hard topics that are a bit painful for everyone, then perhaps this content is for you. But if you feel like it doesn't resonate with you, it could just be that you are at a different point in your journey and you're just not at a point where you can or that you want to look at this yet. So you might find that if you go through some things in your journey and take all the time that you need, this took me years to get to this point where I was okay to deal with the things that were painful to deal with. The process of dying to yourself. The thing is, when the flesh is kind of killed, if I can put it that way, it is painful and it's hard to even want to do that. So it can take long. I'm not saying that it will, but it can take long. And if you're not there yet, if you want to be there in the future, but you're not ready for it yet, that's okay. Take all the time that you need. If you do find, for some reason, that at some point you have come to grips with the basic things and you're ready to delve deeper into the word and you're ready to take on more of a challenge to grow spiritually, then perhaps this content is for you. We'll see. Just a word from Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 3, verse 1 to 3. It reads, "And I, brethren, could not speak to you as to spiritual people, but as to carnal, as to babes in Christ. I fed you with milk and not with solid food, for until now you were not able to receive it, and even now you're still not able, for you are still carnal." So I'm kind of just drawing your attention to that verse there because there's a difference between the Christians who are stuck on milk and the Christians who have started and need the milk first, and then those who are ready to move on to the solid food. So, letting go of control and idols. I did speak about the tactics of the enemy in one of my previous videos, and I did cover that sometimes there are hidden things that you don't notice necessarily. So I'm going to get to Abraham and Isaac in a moment, but I want you to think about something. usually the running idea is that if you had to choose between you know, living and dying, you know, that kind of thing, or, you know, denying Jesus or not denying Jesus, usually I think most Christians at a far point in their journey would be at the point where they would say, I would die for Jesus. I would. If someone had a gun to my head and told me to deny Jesus, I wouldn't. I would rather die. Now, it's easy for us to say that if we are at that point in our lives, but think about this. What if the life of your loved one was on the line? Would you honestly be able to watch them die in order to not deny Jesus? That's a tough one. And I say that because we're talking about idolatry, and it's possible for you to make your loved ones an idol. Now, an idol is anything that you would elevate above God, and it's a tough pill to swallow. It's hard to come to grips with, but just consider what things in your life you would rather have than to hold on to God, onto Jesus. So it's not just that, though, not necessarily life or death. Think about in your everyday life with your family members, or maybe a partner that you have, your husband or wife, your boyfriend or girlfriend, fiance, things like that. So watch what you're doing in your life and consider if there is ever a time where you are choosing between God and the people that you love, because that is a very slippery slope, and you might not realize it, but technically what you're doing is you're elevating something above God when you choose other things, other people and other things instead of God. That is an idol. So this kind of idolatry that I'm talking about today, it's not the simple, basic, easy to notice kind. It's the really tough one, and ones that you might not notice. All right. So getting back to Abraham and Isaac, let me just go to my trusty scriptures here. I will show it on screen at some point. You'll probably see it roundabout now. It's basically the story where Abraham was really old. He was so old. He waited long for him to get his son, Isaac. Okay, the Bible describes him as basically he was at the point of being dead. Dead man walking. He was that old. And he finally got his son, so you can imagine how much he loved him. He loved his son. He waited long to get him. Obviously, he loved him. And God basically told him to go sacrifice him. So now he's at a crossroads where he has to choose. Do I choose to obey God, or do I choose to keep the ones that I love? The one that I love. And he didn't. He obeyed God. Now that is something that we, in our lives today, I think a lot of us wouldn't be able to do this. And it's tough, but it's true. Because if he had not done it, we wouldn't have blamed him for it, but he would have disobeyed God, and there would have been bad consequences. And that is what's tough about your walk with God. Once you have Jesus in your life, it's not easy. So just a note that can become an idol in your life. Pay attention to it. All right. And just something else to think about is something that Paul said regarding loved ones. And that was, let me just find it here. It was in 1 Corinthians 7, verse 29 to 35. So basically what he's saying here is, okay, he says this, "But this I say, brethren, the time is short, so that from now on, even those who have wives should be as though they had none, those who weep as though they did not weep, those who rejoice as though they did not rejoice, those who buy as though they do not possess, and those who use this world as not misusing it, for the form of this world is passing away. Okay, like, don't hold on to everything, please. Verse 32, but I want you to be without care. He who is unmarried cares for the things of the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he who is married cares about the things of the world, how he may please his wife. There is a difference between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman cares about things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she who is married cares about the things of the world, how she may please her husband. And this I say for your own profit, not that I may put a leash on you, but for what is proper, and that you may serve the Lord without distraction. So I'm not looking at this as trying to tell people not to be married, not at all. These passages are drawing our attention to the possibility that if you have close loved ones in your lives, you are likely going to put them up very high in your life. You're going to care about them, obviously, because, you know, they're like your other half. If you're married, especially, you know what this feels like. So my point is that, as Paul says here, you know, if you have loved ones in your life, you're going to be caring for the things that are important for those people, and you're going to be distracted away from God. And that's why I say be careful that it doesn't tip into the danger zone of becoming an idol. Not to say that it will, but it's just that the risk is there. There is a risk for it, so pay attention to it and be careful of it. It's not a bad thing to be married. You know, some of us are called to be married, some of us are not. There's no problem with that. But as this passage said, you know, there is a possibility, and it happens, that people who have their loved ones, close loved ones in their lives, pay a lot of attention to them and get distracted away from the Lord. And if you get to the point where you start putting them above the Lord, it's technically an idol. So please be careful. Now, moving on. This brings me to my next point of prosperity preaching. Now, prosperity preaching basically is like health, wealth, and success. And, you know, if you become a Christian, then Jesus is going to bless you endlessly. You'll never have financial issues. You will end up being rich, and, you know. Now, the problem that I have with this is that, in a sense, it does end up idolizing success and money, because people are promised that if they follow God, they will get all of this stuff. And first of all, it puts an expectation on God to give, like, gimme, me, I, and myself. It's all about what I can get and how I can be happy and comfortable. And that's just not how it is. The thing is, you can't be preaching 90% of the time that there will be success if you're preaching based on a book, the Bible, where most of the people did not experience success like that. There were a few, but a lot of the people in the Bible went through some rough times. And I mean really rough. And there was a lot of them. So if you're using the Bible as your standard to teach people and to preach to people, I just don't get why most of your sermons are going to be about health, wealth, and success, when in reality, a lot of the people who were truly blessed by God did not experience health, wealth, and success. And also on the idolizing part, it becomes easy to put that expectation of getting this health, wealth, and success over the truth of God. And the problem is, if you don't get it, basically you lose your faith in God if you base your faith on that kind of preaching. Now, if we look at the book of Job, this is a very good example where Job was basically near perfect. He was, I'm not going to say he was perfect, but he was very highly regarded by God. He was like a friend to God, and he did everything right. But
let's look at Satan's tactics. Satan came to God and said to him, well, he's only doing all of this and praising you and being good for you because you've blessed him with all of this stuff. So God was like, well, I'll give him over to you. Take it all away and let's see. So God was basically testing Job to see, if I take everything away from you, even though you have done everything that you should, are you still going to love me? And that's the thing. With this prosperity preaching and thinking about success and money and all of that, think about it. If it was taken away from you, would you still love God? If not, it means that you have put that success and that money and all of that above God. If you are not willing to lose something, if you have a standard of keeping that stuff in order to be able to praise God, do you really love God? And do you have idols in your life? Just a question. So yeah, that's just something to really pay attention to. I think it's easy to get lost in that. Also, let's think about the man who came to Jesus and basically told him, well, I've done everything that I need to do. What else can I do? So in Matthew 19, Matthew 19, verse 21 to 22. So Jesus said to him, if you want to be perfect, go, sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. This man chose his possessions over Jesus. He knew who Jesus was, and he wanted to follow him. It's not like he didn't know. He knew, and he made the conscious decision to elevate his possessions above, taking the path and following Jesus. He idolized his possessions because it was more important to him than God. And that is an idol, what you elevate above God. And I mean, it's understandable, but the truth about God is a hard pill to swallow. That's just how it is. So, just something to think about. Now, also regarding this prosperity preaching, basically this idea that you can be totally blessed all the time and you can just use your faith to, get rid of sickness, and if you have sickness then you don't have enough faith. This idea that if you come to God, God needs to give you everything and make your life as comfortable as possible. Don't think that when you come to God through Jesus Christ, that you will forever be wholly blessed and have no sickness and no suffering and all of this. Of course, God will provide for you. I mean, if he provides for the birds of the air and he clothes the lilies of the field who do not toil, you who are more important than them will be provided for, of course. But don't get it twisted. Just understand that there is a possibility and there are times where bad things happen to good people. So, a question for you. Jesus basically calls us to do more than him, or at least he says that it could happen. So in John 14:12, he says, "Most assuredly I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also, and greater works than these he will do, because I go to my Father." So, if Jesus said that we could do more than him, and he suffered and was persecuted for what he did, and we do more than him, or even the same, what do you think our lives will look like? Is it going to be this health, wealth, and success? Because Jesus didn't exactly get health, wealth, and success. He was beaten and hated and stoned and killed for what he did. He brought the truth and he was killed for it. And he calls us to do what he does and even more. So if we're going to do what he did, and he was killed for what he did, do you honestly think that you are going to always live a life of prosperity. And if you don't have prosperity, that it's some kind of curse, or that, you know, you don't have enough faith and that's why you don't get the blessing. Let's be real. All right. Let's also think about Elisha and Elijah. This is something else that people seem to not realize. So Elijah was really up there. Elijah didn't even die. He was taken up. So 2 Kings 2 verse 8 to 13, 14, yeah. 2 Kings 2 verse 8 to 14. It should come up on screen at some point. But basically what's happening here is that Elijah takes up his mantle, he rolls it up, strikes the ground, they cross over it. At this point, Elisha asks for a double portion of what he had. Elisha gets, sorry, I don't know if I mixed up my words now, but yeah, Elisha asked Elijah for a double portion. Elijah gets taken up, Elisha catches the mantle, and then he also strikes the water and it divides, just as what happened with Elijah. So Elisha got double of what Elijah got, and Elijah was so great that he was taken up. He didn't even have to die. However, later we see in 2 Kings 13 verse 14, Elisha had become sick with the illness of which he would die. Then Joash, the king of Israel, came down to him and wept over his face and said, "Oh, my father, the chariots of Israel and their horsemen." Okay, Elijah was so great that he got taken up. He didn't have to die. Elisha got double what he got. Elisha knew what was up. He probably had more faith and more abilities than a lot of the Christians today. Yet he got sick and he died from it. So don't let people come and tell you, oh, you can all be healed and it's the will of God that everyone is healed and you just need to have enough faith. I think Elisha had more faith than most people out here. He was out there performing incredible things. You don't think he had faith? You don't think he was favored by God? He got sick and he died. That's the truth. So let's not be deceived and have the wool pulled over our eyes that everything will be perfect and you will have health, wealth, and success. That's just not what happens in the Bible. To some people, like Solomon, he got really heavily blessed. He got a lot. He learned a lesson from it that it was all pointless at the end of the day, because what is this? It's material gain, and what's important is your soul and your connection to God. But yeah, he was blessed. He had a lot. If you want to read Ecclesiastes, you'll get the idea of the lesson that Solomon learned after getting everything that a man could possibly get. On the other hand, we have people like Elisha who were really blessed and they had a lot of faith. They got sick and died. So please, let's not fool ourselves. Okay. So basically, you need to pick up your cross and bear it, and you need to be careful of idolatry. We need to be careful about what we are expecting from God. We need to be able to let go of the things that are in this world, to follow Jesus, to pick up a cross and to bear it. And we need to trust God. Think about Job. He didn't know what was going on. He did everything perfectly and he lost everything. But he didn't feel the need to be in control of everything. He let go and he trusted God. And at the end of it, he was blessed with twice what he had to begin with, because he was faithful and true. And he didn't lose everything as a punishment. He lost it as a test. He didn't do anything wrong. Go read the book of Job if you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you've stuck this far into my video, I'm assuming that you know what I'm talking about in Job. So let's not deceive ourselves. Let's not go along with the world and think that, you know, everything's going to be perfect and we can just snap our fingers and God needs to just gimme. And just because other people are blessed doesn't mean you will be. If you go through the book of Proverbs, you will understand that good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. Good things happen to bad people, and bad things happen to good people. There's no one size fits all. So just because you see some people getting away with doing bad, and just because you see some people being blessed for their faithfulness, that doesn't automatically mean that that's how everything's going to work. Take your situation as it comes, get into the Word of God, speak with God, and just understand that Jesus died a horrible death, so that we didn't have to pay for our sins. The least we can do is respect him for it and do what he asked us to do. He died. We may have to die for him. We might not. If we don't have to die for him, that's, I'm not going to say it's a good or a bad life, but the least you can do, if you don't even have to die for him in return, is you can do what he asked you to do, because he died for you, so you can at least listen to him. If you have stuck this far, I'm going to assume that this resonated with you, and I thank you for listening. I'm here to see what's in the Bible and to follow it. I'm here to follow what God has told us to do. It's not easy. It's painful. And if you are there and you're able to do it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But anyway, thank you for listening. And I do hope that you have a very blessed evening or morning, wherever you are, in Jesus' name. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.